We're going to talk about different kinds of tools, and we'll play a little bit about a sample game I made for this, and we'll just kind of look at how it's put together. But really, by the first 15, 20 minutes into this, I want everybody to be making their own game because it's a workshop. Game theory. I don't think we need to talk about what's important about games, but I do want to talk about this. Why is this first one already? Well, anyway, that there's this whole continuum of games between like a D&D in your basement and playing a video game on a console, between like the technology and the human social element, and in the middle of these, that requires the kind of low technology, but does depend on technology, but tends to also involve people a lot more, or web-based games. And then, and the way at the top end of technology, of course, is VR and mixed reality, all of which is great. This is what I mean. The high end is where I spend most of my time, like avoiding people and dealing with code. But this is much more social. This kind of technology here. That okay. Then within the web game, there's everything from just like I'm turning the pages. It's not really a game. I'm plugging through this material, or match games, or quizzes, or puzzles. And then, then of course a web game, as you know, can be pretty performant at this point. And when I say a web game, I mean a browser-based game. If you're in WebGL and you have a decent machine, you're keeping up with, console from 7 or 8 years ago, which at the time was impressive. So there's all this, high technology stuff, or high, interactivity stuff, and then the super low interactivity. And of course, a lot of this is also presented in a lot of the games I make are for people who don't play games. They're for the games that are made by people who believe the best way for them to get their idea across, or to teach in particular, is through a game. And so you have to have something that's easy to use for that audience, some of whom are hostile. So I like being in here with games that are branching stories, that are dialogue driven. There's a little strategy, but they're not complicated. They're not even complicated like tycoon games, which don't demand much in the way of reflexes, but they do demand a lot of thinking. I like, and things here are too stupid. Things here are too tough. But these games where you put into a situation and you have to make kind of a lifelike decision, are games that are really accessible to a large number of people and can be very deep, if you're a deep enough author, which I certainly am not. But the tools for these, of course, at the high end is Unreal, which is maybe a little better than Unity, and Godot and Unity, and then Construct 3, which is very similar to Phaser. Phaser is a little more roll your own. Construct is more of an IDE and sort of a little simplistic. I don't know why I didn't put Phaser in there. I should have. And Yarn, which is a more sophisticated kind of Twine, and this good old Twine. And then there are even simpler tools that are completely drag and drop, that are made for people who are telling an interactive, very primitive interactive story and have no coding skills or really game ambitions either. Although branch track, you can make a good game. And PowerPoint, good old PowerPoint, that if you're making something that just goes by pages, it's what you tend to use, although not necessarily on the web. But that gets us to Twine. And so, I say this, it's not 100% true, but the mostly what you're thinking about are words. It's a really good tool for using words to create a world and using the connections between them to create, meaning and decision and action for the player. And again, the player he's making decisions almost always he's taking time to think about. They're not reflexes, obviously. I say that, but we'll see some examples where people did games that are more graphic and musical, but it's not the heart of what the tool's good at. What the Twine does is it makes something called Markdown. Markdown is text with special code in it. HTML is a form of, or markup, I guess is the real word is markup. HTML is a markup language that's used to embed meaning and graphics and stuff into text. Markdown is like a specialized version of markup, like HTML. It's a language, or it's one of a number of languages. Anyway, Markdown is text that's got embedded in it codes. But the thing that's weird is that Twine has 3 different engines inside it, and they're all very compatible except where they're not, which is almost worse than them being incompatible. They have very different approaches to how they take the markdown and turn it into HTML, which ultimately your game is HTML with, calls to graphics and links and everything HTML can do. Since, like you, Anatoly, I do a lot of work in JavaScript, and I love it. It's a great language the more you learn to succumb to it. So Snowman is one of they call these formats, but they're like internal interpretive engines. Snowman is very spare. You end up writing if you want images, you write the images in HTML. If you want different text treatments, graphic styling, you write it in CSS. And you embed that into the game. And after a while, you say, what am I using Twine for? Like 90% of this is my own, 90% of the tricky stuff is my own JavaScript, my own HTML, I'm writing. But I'll explain why. I try getting away from it. It really does offer some very useful tools. But what I found that I did, and I'm going to show you an example that was done in Snowman, but I found that I pretty much had to do a lot of writing of my own, like macros and shortcuts and things that I would keep calling on to make Twine do the things I kept wanting to do. I want to change the background image. So I write a little code to do that. Well, that's why SugarCube and Harlow exists. SugarCube is a very, in JavaScript, they call it opinionated framework. You make stuff in it that works the way they thought it should work. And it's not very close to JavaScript anymore. You have a lot of learning to do. It can do tons of things. Harlow, I've found, if I were going to learn again, I wouldn't start with Snowman. I would start with Harlow, which has got a modest amount of macros and special markdown, which I'll show you. I've never done a project in Harlow, but I don't want to suggest people do what I did, which is work in Snowman. This is the Harlow markdown. A lot of it's also the same as Snowman. If you put any, it's similar in a lot of respects to Wiki Markdown, which is it Wiki or PH or Bulletin Board Markdown? Anyway, there are other technologies that use the same kind of markdown. Let me close the door. There's noise coming through. This go to the seller is embedded anywhere in my text. But let me step back. It's a bunch of discrete blocks of text that you edit one by one, and each one represents a screen, state of the screen. And the links, although they can be finer, you can switch things within the screen in a more sophisticated program, in a sophisticated game. But the simplest games just go from passage A to passage B, and to then the person chooses between C and D, and then so they link from passage to passage. This is a link to a passage. It appears anywhere in your code, in your text, really. And that piece of text will be a visible hyperlink that says go to seller, and it goes to a passage whose name is go to seller, which can be confusing after a while because it is the seller. You're going there. So someone might rename that passage internally to be seller. What did I do? I think my fingers are on the wrong buttons. There we go. This is code that says show the player go to seller, but don't go to let's have the name of the passage, what I'm working on it, be a lot more simpler, and it'll be seller. Because, for one thing, I might want to be someplace else and go through the right door, and that's going to take me to the seller. I want to end up in the same seller. So I have to be able to separate the words on the link from the destination of the link. But either of these formats is the core to Twine. You could write nothing else. You could easily write a very, very good game that only used this, even just the first one of these, to create the links, to make all the decisions. And obviously a typical passage, some passages will just have one link at the end, but that's not a game. That's a page turner. But, so you could have multiple ones. If you're working on a, choose your own adventure, this is the heart of it. There's also visual kind of markup, styling. If I put double slashes, I get italics, I get boldface, strikeout. I never use the italics and boldface because you can get the same effect using asterisks, so it's easier. I think there's a slight difference between strong and boldface, but it comes out the same on the screen. You can do superscript and horizontal line, and you can justify if you put this. The other ones are inline. I'm just any one word, of course, can be italicized. The left justify and right justify and center are, I don't have center here, but center is the two of them next to each other. They're on a line by themselves, and they change your presentation for the rest of eternity until it gets another command, another justifying command. So this much markup.
Is it default justify left?
Yes, right, correct. So, and it's not framed or it's not a closing tag. It just keeps going until the next one comes. So these are the simple markups that, well, the link is powerful, and the other ones are just making the text look good. But Harlow has this entire vocabulary of macros, they call it. So, okay, let me actually take a step back. If you think about how your game is going to work, you're going to give the player a choice. And that's, you give one passage. They come into the main passage. By passage, I mean the text block of the screen. And then they have to branch, let's say, into two different choices, just the minimum. Well, and then each of those, there'll be a choice. And now there's two for each of those, and maybe they don't go, maybe now you have 4 by the time you made your second level of decision. And then you can see where we're going. It's what they call combinatorial explosion. That as you offer more and more choices, if you have to code each one of those as a separate passage, this is the one where I turned left the first turn, and I turned right the second turn, and then I picked up, the bag of gold. Well, I have to have a whole bunch of ones that are for the guy who didn't pick up the bag of gold. If everything were to be done by making separate passages, that would be this combinatorial explosion, which makes a game impossible. From the point of view of plot, there's a technique or a policy of folding it in, of doing 2 things, of creating decisions that don't really matter, that let the player enjoy a decision, but it brings them to the same place anyway. You need to do some of that. And then another thing that you need to do is have this plots converge. Otherwise, just like in real life, all these alternative realities get out of hand. You have to bring them back together. But on top of that, you're also going to want to manage state. That bag of gold. Does he have the bag of gold or not? You really don't want to make a whole nother alternate game for the guy who doesn't have the bag of gold that only comes together when he gets his gold. That'd be a nightmare. Instead, you want to be able to record the state in a variable. So you would hit a passage, and in that passage it would say, set bag of gold to true. And then from then on, every time I need to buy something, well, there's do I have the bag of gold, so I can buy it. And it could present different things on the screen, different choices to the player, using something like this. So if I'd set bag of gold to be true, it'd say now if bag of gold, offer something for sale, or for a link, like one of these links that. Let me turn on the pointer. Now a link like this that would go in here in the hook. A hook is a concept in Harlow, and maybe in other kinds of Twine, that is the state that's activated by a conditional or a macro. So if this is true, then whatever is in this hook is rendered. If it's text that goes on the screen, if it's a sound, you hear the sound. If it's a link like this, the link appears. And if the condition's false, it doesn't. Or a different one does with the else. Notice how the syntax is kind of yucky, if you don't mind me saying that. The macros end in a colon and are and contain or have parentheses around them, but the parentheses aren't the parentheses are the conditional in this case, or in this case it's the entire set this to that. But the hook is sort of outside the macro, and it's delineated by single square brackets. So, for example, here's another kind of macro. This is not exhaustive, but I guess these are kind of examples how it works. If it sees this, whatever that string is, it will replace it with a hook. So, for example, if it said purchase and I just rolled over it, or maybe it said, you have the bag of gold, you can buy a fish. And I rolled over the fish, and it might say a 20-pound carp, or it might change. It would replace the word fish with 20-pound carp, if 20-pound carp is what it said in there. Or it could be a picture. This is a different kind of macro. This macro says whatever's within these uh, curly braces, and curly braces not used very much at all in Twine. They're used for this. Like if this said 1 second, that would mean every second execute this hook. And there's a stop command that you might want to put in there. Either this is something that, if you're writing a choose your own adventure, really any kind of one of these games, it's not infrequent that you want to randomly choose from a list. So this either is a macro that says, I'm going to follow by a bunch of stuff, and it's going to select from that list randomly. And that might be, a string that goes into the middle of a line of text, or it could be, it could be pretty much any kind of hook. It could be, here's a new link that, here, I'll give you 3 options for what the link is, and they randomly will appear. Click replace, that's sort of like, well, that's like mouse over replace. Wherever that string appears, you're going to have to click on it. This is, these two are put in here to let you know, this is when I decided I really prefer Harlow. Because Harlow puts you in the position that Snowman put me in all the time, which is I want to write my own JavaScript, which often I do. For complicated things, I don't want to screw around with learning their syntax for very complex, deeply nested conditions. I want to use JavaScript, very sophisticated language, but I can. Wherever I want, I can stick JavaScript in. I have yet to figure out how to access the variables, but I don't think it's hard. I just haven't done that yet. But you can use any JavaScript you want. Also, any HTML you want, like the image that's above that and the video. You would think that Twine would have a simplified, sophisticated way to add images. It doesn't. You just put those tags in there, and it just embeds them. I can show you an example of all this stuff. Let me switch screens. Okay, so this is what, this is why Twine is better than just writing in JavaScript, in my opinion. You have these, each of these is a passage, and you'd think, well, it's kind of nice that it has this flowchart. It's not just nice; it's super important. For a game project that had that was essentially a choose your own adventure kind of game, I declined to use Twine. I don't think I knew about it at the time, and I said, I don't need Twine. I don't need this. I just write my own. And without this tool, very quickly, it's extremely difficult to keep track of your adventure. Unity is a much stronger language in every possible way. But if it doesn't have this, it's going to be really hard to write the adventure. For example, here, let's see. Okay, so this is a little confusing because you see the arrows coming from the end back to the start where it's playing. You know what? This is the one where, let me switch to a different version of this. I'll get back to this in a second. I'll try to do this as quickly as I can. Okay, this is the same thing, but it's just not written in Harlow, and it actually works. So this is the game, and I can start it here. And this was made for people who train, corporate trainers. So it's about trying to figure out why this woman quit her job. And you have this interview. It's just pure text here. This is straight out of the box Snowman, actually. Snowman has no essentially no formatting. So I'm, going through, I'm asking questions. I can barely tell which are the links, barely. But that's because I had turned off, wait, did that show you enough? Maybe not. Okay, let me just, before I get into the styling, here's the code. I wanted this all to be in headline mode. So I use, I left that out of my list of things. Pound will give you like a headline 1, pound gives you headline 2. So I wanted it to be pretty big text, so I used headline 2. And then I have why did Karen quit? And here's the note that she left behind. So you can see the one link that I have outgoing from start is why did Karen quit? And then it's just normal text. And here, the syntax is a little different on Snowman than Harlow, but you can see that maybe Sammy can help. That's the text that shows, but where it goes to is a passage called just Sammy, because I want to get the other ways. So why did she quit? I can go to Sammy to find out, or I can go to later to if I choose that. Notice here's the kind of story structure I was talking about. I wanted to give you a choice, but I really want you to go through Sammy. So I can go here. Why did Karen quit? Maybe Sammy can help. I'll go to Sammy. Or I'll just come back later. Well, that takes me to later. Where does later take me?
Why did Karen quit?
Back to Sammy. See the arrow going here? Oh, maybe you can't see my, do you see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so it goes to later. Later, you have no choice. You go back to Sammy. So this is like a false choice just to make them feel like there's some agency. Because, I don't really want to invent a whole nother story. In a more complicated game, maybe the one JP's doing, there would be a complicated thing, but this is meant to be solved in, in 2 or 3 minutes. And then Sammy only has one way out, which is, did you talk to her about this? Whoop. Well, no, I see 3 choices here. Oh, yeah, look at that. Yes. Here's another example of cheating. Did you? Okay, so he says he doesn't know why. I can only guess. So this whole game, you're interviewing Sammy. And so did she talk to you about this? You can just ask that. But you can say guess, or what do you think she meant? No matter what you ask, you're still going to the same place. Maybe that seems like it's cheating, but believe me, it's a complicated enough 2 minutes. Then you get to here where you're actually getting a meaningful choice. And so after a while, this starts to get complicated. And you start to say, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to debug these arrows all the time. Well, here's my clue about that. I always put the happy ending and the lose ending over here. And you can always tell then from an arrow whether, here, no, not now. This answer, if I answer secret, there's no way to get back up into the top of the game, which is where the win is. So you can tell that this is a bad answer, whereas the good answer is, what did she talk to you about? When? It's June now. So these are the answers that are taking me to the win condition. Whereas all these other ones are taking me around in circles. I don't want to make this an easy game. You can spend a lot of time and you can recover. That's another important thing, in any game, is to give people who've made a bad choice, you can recover from this all the way to the very end. Well, if you blame Pete, by the time you decide that Pete's the bad guy, which he isn't, you've lost the game. This is just telling you you've lost. But until then, you can still make choices that'll get you out of trouble. So now to show you a little bit about making us ugly. Okay. There is something called the story style sheet and JavaScript, which is This is CSS that this style sheet. Remember, everything was just black and white text. But I wrote some styling in CSS. Not a lot. I just wanted the background to be colorful, or the color I liked, and the text and the each of the passages that happen. I want to treat them a little differently, and I wanted the links. These links are overdone. You'll see. In fact, I'll make them. Yeah, they're really too intense. But you'll see. So now, it's the style that I wanted, with the super heavy-duty links that I liked for some reason. But again, it doesn't feel that much like a, it feels a little plain by most people's standards. So another thing that you can do, or what I did is I said, well, I want to have music. So excuse me. In addition to CSS that's valid through the entire game, there's JavaScript that's executed at the beginning of the game. So I set up a bunch of, I said, well, I want there to be something called music, and then play the music. And then I said, every time you get to a new passage, because it generates an event, I want you to look at what the tags on that passage are, and then grab an image out of, you can't put images into this. They have to be externally posted. Grab an image and put that on the background. So if you look, you'll see this one has skeptic, a skeptical look on his face. So now if I play the game, so why did she quit? Can you hear the music?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe Sammy can help. There's Sammy. Did you talk about this? Sure. Let's talk off the record. So I can make the game considerably more complex. But, or richer, there's really no end to it. It's whatever JavaScript I want to put in there. And I promise I'd show you. This one I did in Snowman, but I'll quickly show you the examples that I talked about in Harlow, because I just played with them. Wrong one, sorry. Harlow. Oh, shit. Never mind. I copy and pasted it, and then I actually deleted it for some reason. Never mind. I don't have it. Let's all do our own. Let me warn you first of all. When you work online, let's go to the online. Can you go to twinery.org? So I set up some Twine. I set up a lot of examples, and then I said, you know what? I'm going to use my better computer that's got a better camera and better microphone, so that so everything runs better, because Siege. And at 11:30, I was setting it up, and I went to Twine, and it's like nothing was there. And I'll tell you why. And I was terrified until I remembered, use it online. You would think that all these exist in the cloud, like a normal 21st century platform, but they don't. All these live in local storage on your browser. So I'm using my crappy $200 Dell here, because that's what I wrote these on, and not the $1,600 XPS that's sitting around here someplace else, because it doesn't have it physically in the browser memory. You know what I'm saying, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. So be careful. Like if you see clear my browser stash, it depends on how, you can be careful about how you clear it, but it's pretty easy just to wipe all your stuff out. There's no reason to keep it there. It's easy to export. If it wasn't 1130, I just would have exported it to a file. In the end, when you're done, it creates one HTML file that's got everything in it. Remember, all your pictures, all your music, if you have any of that, all your video, that's all external. But all the HTML, all the story code, all the markup and all that, that's all gets jumbled together into a giant HTML file, which you can then edit as well as view. And here, oh wait, I think I already found out that I didn't have anything there. Sorry. I wonder if I can, no, it's gone. Okay, so you guys have this open. So let's start a new one. There's got to be a new button here someplace. You guys probably see it already, right? How to start a new one? I have 10 stories here that are jamming up my screen. Here we go. Plus story. I want a new story. You guys see where my cursor is?
Yes.
Okay, so what do I call my story? Fun at Siege. I am the worst typist in the world. So right now there's just a passage with no title. And we can call it, I don't care about text. Start. And let's say, who made the best game? And we can say, JP or Anatoly. I think I do it now. No, I don't do it. I just go over here. Okay, so here's start, and who made the best game, and there's JP and there's Anatoly. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I will answer this question shortly, but meanwhile, I want you to make your own game, and I'm hoping that like in 10 minutes or 5 minutes after you fool around for a bit, we'll share screens. You guys will share your screens. We'll take do it. Oh, and change story format. You see that down here? I would make sure you're in Harlow. I'm not in Snowman. I'm going to just switch it. I guess I want to be Harlow 2.1. And the Harlow 2.1 documentation is in that Google Doc. But for now, it's just bounce around.
How did you change your story to make sure?
To Harlow?
Yeah.
Okay, see down at the bottom where the name of your story is?
Uh-huh.
Click it up, and there's right here, change story format. Do you see where I am?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay.
Oh, it defaulted to Harlow 3.1.0. Okay.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Right. Yes, that is the default now. It's Harlow.
And I'm actually using the app instead of online just because I wanted to test it, if that's okay.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I think that it's better to use the app because you don't have the advantage of being online in that you can't just pick it up anywhere. And also the other beauty about doing it with the app, much more important, you don't have to post your images online. You can just have them in the folder, all the external assets.
That was going to be a question I was going to ask. Okay, that's good to know.
How do I save, like if I wrote something? Just close the box?
Yeah, yes, or click outside of it.
Oh, okay.
Then every time you refer to a link, it should automatically appear.
Mm-hmm.
Passage that. Is it making sense to you, JP?
Yeah, I wrote, all right, so I wrote a paragraph. I have my choices, but I'm trying to figure out how, like, it's showing up as bullets. Is that how it's supposed to look?
Can you share your screen?
Maybe.
Or maybe I have to stop sharing mine.
So I wrote this,
Okay, great.
and now I want to tag for the, so I want to do the, I want to do the old house, and oh, look, I can't type, and the tree. Yeah, I'm so used to having, autocorrect that.
I get it. So,
And Grammarly is my best friend ever.
did
So I just do brackets, right? Double brackets.
yeah, yes. Mm-hmm.
And so
And
you can't link it within the paragraph, right? So it's not, I mean, like HTML. I mean, I guess you
yeah,
could.
I think you can. I just, now that you mentioned, I never have, but
So if I do that,
yeah, I think so.
and then
I don't know how you got the bullets though.
do what?
I don't know how you got bullets.
I don't know either. So what do I? So to test this.
So you close it or just click off of it?
Okay, it did make them. Okay, and then put play.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it on another screen?
Do what?
Is it playing on another?
Oh, it went to my brain. Yeah, it's showing it in HTML. Sorry, me. So that's what it looks
cool.
like.
Yeah. So
it's empty right now, but I would write a description for that. Okay, that makes sense.
Great. How about you, Anatoly? Going okay for you?
Yes. Okay.
So for example, like obviously this is just on the fly. So dark and stormy night, storm is raging, lightning's flashing, you see an old house in the distance, but a tree nearby. You run to the tree, lightning strikes it, you duck and run to the house anyway. So I would link from the tree to the house, and then I would pick up from there, right? That's kind of the idea.
Yes, but what's going to happen after a while is you're going to have multiple links to the same passage.
Okay.
I'm trying to
Is
think.
there, now I have a question. So like so once they're in the house, if they like pick up a box of matches and a candle, is there a way to track that they have those things?
Yes, that's what I was explaining about the that's
Variable.
into the variables,
Uh-huh.
which are going to record state. Sharing. Hold on a sec.
Okay, so it'll actually cache those or keep those somewhere.
No, you have to do all the work. Yes, it will do that, but you have to really get it to do that. Give me a second.
I have no idea. Not a programmer, so I have no idea how to get it to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to explain if I can.
Okay.
Oh, actually, yeah, I have. Well, no, this isn't what I want. I'm just having trouble getting the. Oh, here it goes. Okay, the share screen.
Little green button at the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, is the.
And then you can pick your place to show it.
Okay, this is not what I want to show, but I want to get back into Twine. Here we are. So I'm not going to mess around with this. But yeah, let me mess around here. So what did we want to try? We wanted to, okay. We wanted to talk about state. So you want to do something like, I hope I don't mess this up because I am new to Harlow, but I want to set a variable.
Are you sharing your screen? I can't see anything.
Yeah, we see like
I see you.
yes,
You see me?
yes.
Yeah.
Ugh. Oh, I see that. I wonder why. I see. I didn't. Yeah. I was
There
double.
you go.
Okay. So I went back into this who made the best game, and I'll write let's say JP. That's my dollar sign JP is the variable that tracks your JP. And I will say I'm going to set it to true. And it's true not because I wrote it here, but because I executed this passage as a player. When as a player, it writes the stuff on the screen and offers these choices. It's going to also be setting this dollar sign. I'm going to use lowercase JP to be true. Okay? Is that making sense?
No, but
Okay.
keep talking.
So, well, everything that I want to track, I want to track if he's got gold, if he's got potato chips.
Right.
I want to
Okay.
track. If he's, I asked if it was a man or a woman at some point. Each of those things has to be a separate variable.
Okay.
And a variable is just a named piece of memory where I keep stuff. But I can always get to it by that name. So here, I've named it JP. But to make sure it understands that JP is a variable, not all the other things, not just the letters JP, I use a dollar sign. So I believe that if I write now, well, okay, true. So I can write, I think JP is JP. I think that'll work. No, it doesn't work. I have to print it out. So if I go print, Well, this is where my bad typing comes in. Print the value of JP. I think that'll work. JP is true. But I could have made JP is candy, JP is 45. I can put whatever I want in that variable. But I want a variable that's true or false, because later on, when I get here, I want to say if JP, which means if it's true, then I want to say I knew he would win. I hope Anatola's not watching. And then I can have else. Else what? There's no condition there because the condition is already in the other one. I thought. I don't know what. Okay, because I didn't. JP isn't true. I thought JP would lose. Is that making sense? I mean, this is a bad example, of course. But I go, I play, and I choose JP, and I get of those two choices, I knew he would win because JP is true. I kind of overused your initials there, but you see what's going on. I'm stating, I'm making something be true. If I had started here, I just play here. Oh, it doesn't even like it because it's giving me an error because I didn't give it a variable that I'd already set a value to. It said, what the hell is this? JP, I never saw this before. If I had started with set, does that make sense to you? The error here is it didn't like it because.
Right. I just don't know I don't know the programming language. So, I mean, it makes sense what you're doing or trying to do, but I wouldn't know how to do it is the thing. That's what I'm saying. Like, I barely know C# at the moment. So,
well, C# is a lot more complicated. Okay, so here I can say, I'm now in the Anatoly branch. And if I say set JP to false, and now I want to offer, this is a different JP. This is the passage named JP. It created an arrow here. So I can, if I go this path, it'll be true when I get here. If I go this path, it'll be true. Then when I get here, it'll be false. And then when I get here, it'll be false still. Does that make sense? Okay. And you know what? I'm going to take that print. I'm going to copy it down here. Okay, so who made the game, best game? I set JP to be true. If I go to JP, JP's true, I know he'd win. Now if I go back to the beginning, who made the best game? I pick Anatoly. It just set quietly in the background, it set it to be false. JP is false. It also gives me the only alternative is to go to the JP passage where it's false now, and now I get a different message.
okay.
It's not a pretty example. It works, but it's confusing because it's too much stuff in there. I could do it again with bags of gold and fishes or something. if you want.
Yeah, I think it would make more sense if it were something like
Not using your
buying an
name.
object or picking up an
Okay.
object and then buying a thing or buying a different thing and then having that thing in the next passage.
Okay, sure. So let's say
it's all right. I mean,
okay.
I'm kind of wrapping my head around it slowly. I'll get there.
Okay.
Because honestly, like, I haven't, like, my brain says just make different passages that are true if you have this object or that object, and I would just have a ton of branches. This is much
Right.
cleaner and much easier to do, right? So
Oh, you'll go crazy with the other.
yeah, and so that's just, you know, like figuring out how to create a set is what's important, and knowing if it's true or false that they have a thing, and then what the response is based on that. Like I get the logic behind it. I just wasn't sure how to write it. So I think I'd have to play with it a little bit, but I think I get it.
Sure, I'm going to set money to be 5. Because it doesn't have to be true or false. And I'm just going to go through here, make it simpler. And when I get to here, I want to say if money is greater than 4, I want to be able to buy a horse.
Quick comment, we are past time. If anybody has another session after this one, we should probably wind down.
Okay. Let me just finish this example, maybe. Yeah, I'll bring it to a close. I should have picked something easier like this. Okay, so you see what's happening? It's, so I have if I go straight from the start to here, I'll have enough money to be offered a horse. Otherwise, I'll be offered a goldfish.
Okay.
Okay. And if I come through this way, I'm going to have money be
Less than.
right.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. Thank you.
In fact, I can do this. I can say money is it minus 3. So I spent $3 by visiting Anatoly. Yep. And see if it works. I have $5. If I go straight to see you, I'm offered a horse or a Norse, maybe. If I go visit Anatoly first, I spend $3. Now when I get to see you, I only have $2 and I'm offered a goldfish.
Okay.
And bad spelling everywhere. But, okay, you guys are welcome to reach out if you want help later on. But I'm not the world's best resource. Certainly the Harlow docs are better than me because that's where I would go if you ask me a question of any kind of difficulty.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
It was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
I'm sorry I didn't get to see yours, Anatoly.
It's okay. I actually did one.
Let's shoot this fast.
Yeah, let's see it.
Just a second.
Let me stop sharing.
I can't, yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's see what we got.
Just a second. Do you see it?
Yes.
It's like food choice.
Mm-hmm.
Like mother asks a child, what did you eat today? And banana or carrot.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2 choices. If it's banana, it's asks yes or no.
Uh-huh.
If it's organic banana,
Uh-huh.
yes or no. And here it's set to true. And then also the same one is carrot, also organic.
Uh-huh.
Yes, no. I didn't finish it. I wanted to finish if it's organic, then it will be win, and if like not, it will be lose.
Uh-huh.
and I can pay it. I think I did something. Organic carrot, yes.
Oh yeah, so you did one. Is it,
Yeah, but I didn't do like a variable, print variable. I wanted to print a variable,
ah,
but it doesn't start from the start. I don't know why. It was,
You clicked play. You didn't click. You clicked play at the caret, not at the beginning. There you go.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, sure. So what I did,
Thanks, JP.
banana, then it says, was it organic banana? Here I set a variable to true,
Uh-huh.
banana.
Yeah.
And if you say yes, very good. And I wanted to print here like win. Or
and then you can also
if else,
print. And now you know whether to say you have an organic banana.
Or you could even say, yeah, like why organic is better as an educational.
yes,
That's great.
sure.
Awesome.
Oh no.
Very good, guys. That's
Yes.
great. Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, I stop sharing.
Yeah, by the way, wait, before you stop sharing, notice this debug screen here.
Yeah, I see it.
Very handy.
Yes.
So it shows you all your state variables and stuff.
Yes.
Cool. Very cool. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye. Was very good.